Hello and welcome to my System Shock review. So this is a review for the new System Shock game. It's a remake of the original System Shock. In this review, I'm going to break down gameplay, what I like about the game, what I don't like about the game, and ultimately if I recommend it or not. So to begin, let's go over the difficulty settings. This is very important for me. I like games that have high difficulty and have a high skill ceiling. So you can actually increase different aspects of the game's difficulty. So for starters, you can increase combat difficulty. So on easy, fewer enemies, they take less damage to defeat, and they don't attack you as aggressively. And then on normal, it's kind of like average enemies, average stats. And then on hard mode, enemies are more aware of where you're at, and they're a little bit more tanky. And from what I understand, they deal more damage. So this is like max difficulty for combat. And then for mission, and on hard mode, you actually have to beat the game in under 10 hours. And if you do not disable cyborg conversion, when you die you get a game over, and you can just reload a save, but you get a game over. So you have to switch off a thing on each map, like on each level, so that you don't permanently die, and then you'll essentially respawn with low health, kind of like a Vita chamber from Bioshock. Then there's Cyber, which is like this hacking mini game where you fly around in like a little spaceship thing and shoot dudes. The highest difficulty, if you die in the game, you will die in the game. So if you die during the cyber hacking, you will actually die. And if you did not disable the cyborg conversion, you'll get a game over. So you actually have to be careful when playing around these two things. And also the 10-hour time limit. If you don't know what you're doing, you could easily go over this. So be careful, be aware of that. And then for puzzle, you can actually increase and decrease how complex the puzzles are. So you can make the cyber hacking harder, you can make the puzzles harder, you can make the overall game harder, and you can make the combat harder. Now I did just beat it on all these settings maxed out. I beat it with 5 minutes remaining because I got stuck and was just like running around for like 2 hours trying to figure things out without looking up a guide. But it was reasonably hard. I do hope they add higher difficulty settings, like a 4 and maybe a 5. I think that'd be amazing. I would really enjoy that. I actually might. I hope the devs see this, but if they do an update, that'd be cool. Like maybe beat the game in like 8 hours, and then for this one, the enemies are harder to kill or whatever. They could do something that's not too hard to implement. And then cyber, I don't know that I want cyber to be harder, but they could do that as well. And then puzzles being harder would be cool, but increasing these would be interesting. But these are the default settings, or like these are rather. But you can customize, so like let's say you hate cyber, but you like puzzles, you want the mission, and you want the combat. You can customize the experience. So that's the point of this section here, just showing that you can choose exactly what you get. So if you hate puzzles, if you don't like the puzzles, if you don't like the cyber, but you just want good combat and a difficult challenge in the mission, you can go this route. So that way you're spending less time doing these. But maxing it out is pretty fun. It gives you a good mix of gameplay. Like the puzzles and the cyber break up the basic shooting. Let's talk about the puzzles in the game. So this is what a puzzle looks like on max difficulty. There are different types of puzzles. There's like flow puzzles where you connect one node to the other, and then there's these puzzles where you have to plug in things, and there's like a current. So there's like a complete the circuit and like a flow type puzzle. So this is like the complete the circuit one. So these knobs rotate. And then you can also, they rotate the certain yellow tiles. And then these can be rotated. So, and also some of the knobs, you can see like these edges here, can carry the current. So like if I rotate that, it pushes it through. If I rotate that, you can see that it pushes it through here. And then this is now going this way. We can kind of like reroute the power through here. So you can see it's coming down, and I'm connecting. So the power is going through these because there's little edges there, like little parts where it connects. So it can be pushed through. So we're like routing this down through here, it's rotating this way. And then once I rotate this, it connects it, solving this puzzle, unlocking this lift. So every puzzle unlocks a door, it unlocks a lift. It's very straightforward. But the high-level puzzles can be fun. I actually already knew the solution to this one, but there's a few they're not randomly generated. I think they're like pre-made puzzles that randomly are placed, so you'll get like a random puzzle number. So the solution to that one is like routing it and going through everything and then connecting. But they're pretty fun. For your first playthrough, they're definitely really fun. That one I recognize, so I don't know if they're going to add more puzzles in an update or anything like that, but if they did, that'd be cool. So the main way you actually make money in this game isn't from necessarily killing enemies and getting loot. It's actually from picking up junk and vaporizing it and recycling it. So vaporizing is a thing you can do. You can right click and vaporize, and each item has a recycle reward and a vaporize result. And in the case of some items, the recycle reward is 0, meaning if you recycle it directly, you're not going to get money. But if you vaporize it, you can get scrap, and 10 scrap equals 1 credit. So in the case of these mugs, these should be vaporized, and as I'm vaporizing them, I'm getting scrap, and anything that has no recycle value should always be vaporized. So now I've recycled junk and turned it into 1 credit. Now these items here, they vaporize for 5 scrap, but recycle for 1 credit. So if I vaporize both of these, I get 1 credit. If I recycle both of them individually, I get 2 credits. So things that have high value should be recycled directly if possible, but as you play the game and as you progress, you will lose inventory space as you start getting weapons and, you know, grenades and all these healing items. So it usually is better just to vaporize it, but in the case of the early game, you can get away with some recycling. So you just place the items, you use the thing, and then the credits come out. One of the major aspects of System Shock is exploration and finding secrets. So this ladder, you might not notice it on your first playthrough, but there's actually some healing items up here. Every level has secret areas, so make sure to explore those nooks and crannies. But a lot of the levels are interlocked, kind of similar to like BioShock levels, but even more so, where there's like little tunnels and crawl spaces. So there's all these little, you know, hidden areas with enemies just like lurking around and hidden items. There's quite a lot to the game. So combat in the new System Shock game is quite responsive and clean. You can't really aim down the sight, but you can zoom in to increase accuracy. Now when I'm moving, you can see there's like accuracy bloom, and then when I zoom in and move, I slow down, like I'm basically walking while aiming, but I have much better accuracy. The same is true for crouching. So crouching is very similar. There is leaning, but I change Q and E to shield, and then environmental protection. So I can like turn on a shield, turn it off when I'm not getting shot at, turn it on again, shoot a dude. Now I'm using armor piercing rounds. There are ammo types. So you can hit T by default to change ammo types. And if you look at the 30, it's an orange, which is default ammo in the case of the Scorpion. And then Teflon coated, which has better damage and armor penetration, which is good for fighting pretty much everything in the game, is in blue. So you can visually see. So there's no like HUD that shows you the ammo. The weapon itself actually displays the ammo, which is kind of cool and is pretty neat. Now there's also things like platforming, so you can like sprint jump. And right now I have boots that let me fly at the cost of energy, so I can just start flying. Now you can't go so high though, like there's low ceilings and there is a limit as to how high you can go. There are different healing items. So here's an example of like, I have some story items. I'm actually drop some of these things. I don't like the mag pulse. I don't find it to be very useful, but let's get that medic pack, that med kit. You can right click and use things. You can also drag and drop stuff. So if you want to like hotkey, you can do that. Now that actually isn't the med kit, that's a healing patch. You can fire and burst to maintain accuracy. And with things like the spark beam, there's levels of energy. So you can choose how much energy you consume when you shoot, which scales damage. Most enemies you want to shoot at in bursts, and with this enemy you can actually shoot him in the shoulder. Which is a neat little gimmick I learned just from playing this game so much. So to wrap up, if I had to give this game a rating, I would give it, I would say like a 9 out of 10, maybe even like a 9.5. It's very enjoyable. It's very simple, but it has a lot to offer that's fun. I think the mechanics are pretty solid. There isn't too much about it I would change, if anything. So that being said, as someone who's played FPS games, I have like 2K hours in TF2, like 1,000 in Overwatch 2, and like 1,000 in Tribes Ascent. I think this is a pretty fun game. It's pretty solid. It's very reminiscent of like Bioshock. I think it's much harder than Bioshock 1 in particular. It's probably about as hard as Bioshock Infinite in 1999 mode, but it's reasonably difficult. There's some cool, interesting weapons. It has a good setting. The plot is pretty basic but interesting. It's about a rogue AI that takes over the station, and you have to stop her, essentially. There's a lot to do for exploration, for finding items, for scrapping, for inventory management. There's a lot of hidden things that are pretty cool, and it's a pretty straightforward, fun, like sandbox type of game where... So it's a sandbox in that there's like a finite amount of space, you do some backtracking but not a ton. It's more like a Metroidvania, I guess, than a sandbox. So that's like a more accurate description. So it's kind of like a shooting, an FPS Metroidvania type of game. So if that's a thing that you enjoy, then this is definitely the game for you. There's also some cool weapons. So like, for example, this thing, this spark weapon, the spark beam can completely blow up a dude with overcharge mode, and there's like a nice SMG that's pretty cool. There's other weapons too. There's like a railgun, there's a grenade launcher, there's everything. You got all the standard food groups of FPS guns that are fun to use, very satisfying. And yeah, there's even a laser sword. So I do recommend this game. Definitely pick it up on Steam or wherever they sell it at. As far as I know, it's just on Steam, but I think it's on some platforms too, like some consoles. So yeah, definitely pick it up. Highly recommend it. It's a pretty fun game. And if you are the devs watching this, please add more difficulty options and I'll love you forever. All right, thanks. Peace.